I want to share a bit of a strategy that I used to use whenever I had the urge to gamble and I found myself in a position where I was able to gamble. It's something that worked for me, and if you are suffering from gambling addiction or you're trying to stop gambling, then I strongly recommend you try it next time the urge strikes. Firstly, I will say that the very, very best thing you can do if you are a gambling addict or if you're trying to get into recovery is to restrict yourself in any way possible from gambling, be that through the numerous blocks I've spoken about previously and also through avoiding situations where gambling is available. But, like I say, there will be times when you can't avoid gambling. It's everywhere in modern society, and I found this strategy can be beneficial when those urges strike. Firstly, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. My name's Phil. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Thank you to everyone who supports the channel, be that through liking, subscribing, joining, donating, commenting. It's great to see so many comments under some of my recent videos, people sharing their gambling addiction stories, their recovery stories, supporting each other. Really very much appreciated. And if you're not subscribed already, wait till the end of the video, and if you think it's useful, then hit that subscribe button. So like I say, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where gambling is available, even with our best efforts in place. We may be in a strange town where we're not known to be excluded in the local bookmakers. We may be in a strange pub. We may be on a stag or hen do, something of that nature, where a gambling establishment is visited. So we can't always block our access to gambling. So this is how I used to deal in those situations. What I would try and do is play through the gambling session in my head. At this point, I'd been gambling for many, many years. I'd had many experiences with gambling, mostly negative. And I generally knew when I started gambling, be that in whatever format available, online, FOBTs, casinos, fruit machines in pubs, whatever, I knew how that situation was likely to play out. I spoke in a previous video about the idea of just a quick 20 quid and how that was a fallacy, because if you have that addiction, even if you get a quick result off that initial small deposit, you won't want to stop because you haven't had your fix, you haven't had your session of gambling, your urges have not been sufficiently placated, and the dopamine released by that very small amount of gambling hasn't been sufficient to squash the addiction, to squash the urge. And that is why, as addicts or compulsive gamblers, we have more losing sessions than your average recreational gambler, those who have it under control. It's because we are unable to stop when a positive outcome, a net positive result, presents itself. Not because we're not necessarily gambling for the win, we're gambling for the experience, for the rush, for the dopamine, for the suspense that gambling affords us. So I had sufficient experience to draw upon where I can play through these scenarios in my head. Let's say I'm standing or about to wander in front of a FOBT, or I'm about to wander into a bookies to have a go on a FOBT, or whatever. Pick your poison. You can do this with any form of gambling. Now I'm there and I'm just about to get my wallet out and about to put the first note into the machine. Before I do that, if I can find the headspace, I would stop and I would think how this is likely to play out. Right, that one note that I promised myself, that just £20, will turn into more. That will turn into more, and eventually I will spend more time, more money in this experience. And what will that cause? Will it mean that I'll probably be late home for dinner? I'll probably get into an argument with my wife. Maybe something isn't getting paid, or certainly I've forgone the opportunity to spend money on something that I would much prefer to spend that money on. Maybe I will placate my emotions from this loss by drinking too much, by eating unhealthy food, or some other coping mechanism. That will probably lead to me not sleeping very well. That will lead me to having that horrible feeling in the morning when you realise that what you did the night before. It will lead me to being unproductive at work the next day. Maybe that will cause problems with my employment. And you can see how simply playing the potential scenarios through in your head could prevent you from taking that first step into a gambling session. Now, sounds very simple, but what I'm doing and the problem I'm presenting here with this particular strategy is the same way that we were taught about drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and gambling at school. And that is the drugs are bad approach. We were always told, certainly when I was at school, alcohol's bad. Cigarettes will kill you, they'll give you lung cancer and you'll die. drugs will cause you to collapse because it will be badly cut with rat poison, and the first time you take drugs you're going to have a terrible experience and a bad trip, and you're going to have severe health issues. And the problem with this drugs of Adam K approach is that it's nonsense, and it only takes the experimental mind of a young person to partake in one of these particular vices, have a relatively pleasurable experience, and then immediately dismiss the idea that cigarettes will give you lung cancer and you'll die, or that alcohol will lead you to be an alcoholic and you get fat and die early. But you've tried these things and they weren't too bad. So me sitting here telling you that when you gamble you're going to lose is a lie. We were brought up, we had it drummed into us that gambling was for losers. It was a mugs game. The house always wins. And again, this is absolute bollocks. Yes, if you gamble consistently, regularly, and in an uncontrolled manner, the house will always beat you in the end. The house edge will eventually leave you with nothing. But to present the idea that you'll always lose when you gamble is not only woefully inaccurate, it's also incredibly dangerous, because as most people's gambling addiction stories start, it is very possible that when you gamble, you will actually win. You will end up in a net positive position, which means not only have you now got the bug because you think, well, I can win at this, but also you casually disregard all this prior advice that gambling is for losers and you can't win because, well, you've just proven it incorrect. So let's go back to my hypothetical FOBT session. Let's start again. And instead, this time what we do is we play the scenario through in our head, but we will consider what will happen when we win, if we win. So we play the machine and maybe we get a jackpot. Brilliant. Now, of course, what we have to consider is maybe this will come at the detriment of our emotions. Gambling is very much a up and down roller coaster of emotions, and this is what the addiction is based upon. But there could also be other negative side effects. Maybe we will play for a lot longer. Maybe we will put ourselves at a point of risk before we inevitably get bailed out by a freak piece of luck. Maybe we'll put ourselves at a point of risk which causes us undue stress. And whilst that may not have any immediate implications, the putting ourselves through this consistent cycle of stress not only perpetuates the addiction, but it can have a long-term negative impact on our mental health and on our emotional well-being. Okay, but let's disregard all that bollocks, right? It's all pie in the sky, psychological mumbo-jumbo. So maybe we're just late home. Okay, maybe the dinner's in the dog and the wife's a bit pissed off. But hey, look, great, I've got more money in my wallet. I've made a few £100. Top of the world. That, we could close the book on that, surely. Maybe we'll sleep better tonight. Probably not, because we've got all this dopamine and endorphins swimming about in our heads. But, doesn't matter. We had a net positive result. So we wake up the next day, we haven't got that punched in the stomach feeling. What we haven't got is the opposite, though. We don't wake up elated. We don't wake up, in a joyful state because we had a win the day before. At very best, we'll wake up and what we'll do is we'll think, well, thank God, geez, yeah, I got away with that, didn't I? That was a narrow scrape. That could have caused a whole load of problems. But thankfully I didn't do that. Oh, look, there's a bit more cash in my wallet. Fantastic. Think a bit longer than that. A bit more long-term than that. You may not be feeling elated. You may not be feeling overly joyed by your victory. Sometimes winning is just as hollow as losing, as we've discussed previously, because that's not what we're addicted to. What are you going to do now? That money you've won, probably on a FOBT or on a casino or fruit machine or whatever, great, it's nice. But it's not going to change your life. You're not going to go out and be able to buy a new house or retire from your job or do anything probably meaningful. Maybe you've won enough for, some arbitrary purchase. And if you have, then great, but what are you going to do? You're not going to spend it on that arbitrary purchase. That money will be psychologically earmarked for further gambling. That cash in your wallet isn't cash that is exchangeable for a wealth of goods and services. That cash is gambling tokens for you to perpetuate your addiction. So all you're doing is you're giving yourself further ammunition to dig yourself a bigger and bigger hole, to get a greater reliance on dopamine and on this cycle of addiction. So when you're standing in front of that machine, obviously more times than not you're going to walk away in scenario A. You're going to walk away with a loss, and you're going to walk away causing yourself further financial, but also harms for a vast amount of aspects and elements of your life. But don't take that word for it. What if you win? Will it make you happy? Will you actually use any winnings for anything meaningful other than just to literally extend out the addiction that you're currently experiencing? Will you be back in that same position, in that same location, in that same bookies the next day, either trying to replicate the win or simply to keep the buzz going? Because eventually you'll lose the financial side of it, because the house edge, but you will find yourself in a deeper and deeper and deeper hole as time goes on. So next time you're considering gambling, if you're considering gambling now, if you're suffering from gambling urges as we speak, just play either scenario through in your head, win or lose. Either way, the net result is probably going to be much the same. If you think that's interesting, stay safe, stay sane, subscribe to the channel, like, donate, share, whatever, do all them great things. Turn the notification bell on there. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy, guys.